Hey guys, what is going on? Today is May 12th, 2020, and today we'll be taking a look at the uh, the effects of third-party candidates on a presidential election. Um, so here we have the page for the 2020 Libertarian Party presidential primaries, and it's actually pretty interesting because the current frontrunner is Jacob Hornberger, who, as you can see, has not served in any elected position. He's the founder and president of the Future of Freedom Foundation. He was an independent candidate for U.S. Senate from Virginia, my home state, in 2002, and he was the candidate for president in 2000, um, as a libertarian as well. What's interesting about this whole thing is that Vermin Supreme is actually in second, and if you don't know anything about Vermin Supreme, he's basically a joke candidate. He has run for president every single election year since 1992, and he's never really made much of a splash. But in 2020, running as a libertarian, he actually picked up 2 contests in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, um, which is very interesting because he essentially is a joke candidate. As you can see, he's an old white guy with like a long white beard who wears a boot on his head, and he promises ponies to every man, woman, and child in this country. And he's currently in second in the Libertarian Party's presidential primary, which is pretty ridiculous. And certainly the Libertarian Party should be worried because while his campaigns have always been funny, they should try to get someone, obviously they want someone that's serious on the ticket. But if you look at a lot of these people, none of them really have any political experience for the most part. If you look at, I saw it just a second ago. Kenneth Blevins is a pipe welder, and it's like, I mean, obviously he's not doing well in the primary, but it's kind of ridiculous that the third largest party in this country has not just people that are extremely, extremely inexperienced, but who are in some cases joke candidates doing relatively well in the primary. Now, obviously, Justin Amash is different. He actually has political experience and he is active in governance. He's the U.S. representative from Michigan's 3rd District since 2011, and he was Michigan State Representative from Michigan 72 from 2009 to 2011. He will probably be the Libertarian Party's nomination. And the reason for that, even though he's entering the race relatively late, is because he is active in politics. And the Libertarian Party wants a candidate, obviously, who is active in government. If you look at 2016, I'm sure I can pull it up here somewhere. 2016, Gary Johnson has been in politics before. He was the governor of New Mexico, but that was back in the 90s. And, same with 2012. He was also the nomination for the Libertarian Party in 2012. And that was a very long time ago that he was active in politics. He was not elected to anything since then. And so the Libertarian Party is obviously going to want somebody who is more active in politics. And so Justin Amash fills that sort of, he checks those boxes. People seem to really like him, particularly in Michigan, and he's doing. I mean, obviously, right now, He has received a very small percentage of the popular vote, but that's because he just entered the race a couple weeks ago. I fully anticipate that he will receive the party's nomination. He's a former Republican, anti-Trump, and I think that he will secure the nomination relatively easily, just because a lot of these top candidates are just not installing much confidence in the race. And of course, that brings us to the main point of today's video, is the effects of a third-party candidate or multiple third-party candidates. We also have the Green Party, obviously, on the presidential election. And obviously, Justin Amash or none of these candidates are going to win the presidential election. As much as some people would prefer them over Donald Trump or Joe Biden, it just is not going to happen. They don't have enough of a coalition. There's the majority of the people in this country do not even know what the Libertarian Party stands for or represents. Same with the Green Party. They just have a basic understanding of these parties, and so they're not going to have a major impact, but they could take votes away from certain candidates. Obviously, as a former Republican, you would imagine that Justin Amash would take votes away from Trump more than he would from Joe Biden. But we do have to remember that people don't necessarily vote based on... we try to fit people into certain categories, but that's rarely the case. If you look at the 2020 Democratic primary process, I believe the majority of Bernie Sanders supporters said that their second choice would be Joe Biden, and I think vice versa as well. And that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense from an ideological standpoint. You would imagine that the majority of Bernie supporters would prefer Elizabeth Warren because they are more closely aligned in terms of ideology. And for Biden, you would imagine that people would prefer someone like Amy Klobuchar or Mike Bloomberg or Pete Buttigieg to Bernie Sanders. But that's not how the majority of people vote, which is really interesting. So assuming that Justin Amash gets the Libertarian Party's nomination, which I think that he will, how will that impact this race? And the question is, I'm not really sure. I don't think that'll have a major impact. I think he'll do better than most Libertarian Party candidates do. Probably even better than Gary Johnson. I think Gary Johnson got around 5% of the popular vote. We could pull that up here. Well, I'd have to go to the president. It's not that important. I'm pretty sure it was around 5% of the popular vote. And that's more than most candidates get. Ross Perot famously got around 19% of the popular vote back in 1992, primarily because he was invited on the debate stage. He did not win a single electoral vote, but he was very successful. Probably took more votes away from Bush than he did Clinton, which is why Clinton won that election. But ultimately, I don't think it's going to have a major impact. He's not Justin Amash, no Libertarian, no Green Party, no independent candidate, at least not in this race, is going to win any of these states. But they could take a significant number of votes away from other candidates, and certain states could go one way or the other, particularly swing states. Hey, sorry about that, guys. Something was cut off, and it's a weird thing with the audio, but basically, the video is basically over. I do believe that, as I mentioned previously, that Donald Trump would be hurt more from someone like Justin Amash on the Libertarian Party ticket. This is a former Republican, turned independent, turned libertarian, and it's actually pretty interesting that we now have a libertarian in the House of Representatives. It's not going to last very long. Under Michigan law, one cannot seek two different offices, so Justin Amash cannot run for re-election in November for the House of Representatives since he's running for president. But it's still pretty cool that we have a third party politician in Congress. It's doesn't happen often, so and even though he was elected as a Republican, it's still pretty damn cool, I'd say. But yeah, that's basically the video. I know a lot of people say that third party candidates are just spoiler candidates, that you're just throwing away your vote. But I understand why somebody would want to vote for a third party candidate, would want to vote for a third option if they just don't like the first two options. And I get it. But I also get the opposite viewpoint, that there just isn't enough name recognition, there isn't enough money, there's not enough of a strong coalition to propel these candidates to the presidency. They rarely win on the local level, so it would take a miracle, nothing short of a miracle, for a third party or an independent candidate to actually win the presidency. Probably not going to happen for a very long time. I would even say that it's not going to happen in most of our lifetimes, if it happens at all. Teddy Roosevelt was probably the most famous and the most successful third-party candidate. He ran as a member of his own party, the Progressive Party, aka the Bill Moose Party, and he actually did better than the incumbent president, William Howard Taft, primarily because Taft didn't even campaign. He didn't even really want the presidency. He just became president because of Roosevelt's endorsement. Roosevelt grew disgusted with a lot of his policies, and so ran a campaign against them. It split the Republican vote, and the Democrats benefited heavily from it. But that's a video for a different time, obviously. But third-party candidates, at least in recent years, are not successful. Certainly not on a national level. And 2020 is not going to be any different. So there's not much more else to say. I'm just going to end the video there. Thanks for watching. Comment, subscribe, like, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.